It was expanding at a breakneck pace, packed with new arrivals, rapid industry, and restless energy. But that explosive growth came with a hidden danger. The city was almost entirely built out of wood, with houses and businesses packed shoulder to shoulder in an unregulated, continuous grid. To make matters worse, a long, relentless summer had baked the moisture out of the region. The streets were dry, the timber was parched, and the city's extreme density created a stark vulnerability. A fire in any single block could easily threaten the entire grid. Then, on the night of October 8th, a small fire started in a barn. You've probably heard the legend about Mrs. O'Leary's cow kicking over a lantern, but the actual source of the ignition remains an unsolved historical mystery. The exact spark matters less than the environment it landed in. Early Chicago was built for speed, not containment, meaning the city lacked the internal defenses needed to stop a local fire from scaling into a regional disaster. Within minutes, strong southwest winds caught hold of that initial flame, whipping it outward and turning a minor barn fire into a massive inferno. It became a consuming force, tearing through the densely packed streets and devouring building after building without dropping momentum. The localized heat grew so intense that it warped the environment. Solid brick structures cracked apart and melted under the extreme thermodynamic pressure. Carried by the heavy winds, the fire did what residents thought was impossible. It jumped directly across the waters of the Chicago River. As the city fell, the night sky turned an unnatural, glowing orange. A thick layer of ash began to rain down on the streets, burying the city like a toxic snowstorm. People fled in absolute panic. Families abandoned their homes, running through the streets with whatever children and scattered memories they could carry. Human intervention meant nothing against the raging heat. If you wanted to survive, your only option was flight. For 2 full days, the fire burned entirely out of control, stopping only when there was simply nothing left to consume. What followed was a quiet, eerie silence. Over 17,000 buildings were reduced to ash, leaving the core of the city unrecognizable. Around 100,000 people, nearly a third of Chicago's entire population, were left homeless in an instant, and hundreds lost their lives to the flames. The scale of the ruins meant the city couldn't simply be repaired. Every acre of the business district had to be excavated and reimagined before Chicago could function again. But the surviving population refused to leave. Instead of abandoning the ruins, they dug in. The fire had inadvertently provided a forced reset. That dangerous wooden grid was gone, leaving behind a massive blank canvas for modern urban planning. Rebuilding began almost immediately, right inside the still smoldering footprint of the city, and this time they shifted to sturdier construction. The reliance on cheap timber was thrown out. In its place, architects and builders turned to heavy stone, solid brick, and eventually structural steel. City officials matched that physical shift with strict new building codes and fire safety standards, intentionally designing a streetscape that could contain future sparks. This transition directly resulted in the Chicago of today, a city built on a foundation of structural safety and sophisticated urban design. Where fragile wooden shanties once stood, towering skyscrapers of glass and steel now rise above the shores of Lake Michigan. The 1871 fire ended the era of the wooden boomtown. In its place, the city used the disaster to pioneer the modern fireproof standards that now define the American urban landscape.